দর্শক, আমন্ত্রণ RTV নিয়মিত আলোচনা অনুষ্ঠান ফোর্থরাইটে। এই অনুষ্ঠানে আমরা কথা বলি বিভিন্ন সেক্টরের বিশেষজ্ঞদের সাথে, যারা বাংলাদেশ নিয়ে ভবিষ্যৎ পরিকল্পনা ও তাদের আন্তর্জাতিক অভিজ্ঞতা নিয়ে আলোচনা করে। করোনাকালে বড় দুশ্চিন্তার নাম বিনিয়োগ ও কর্মসংস্থান। অনিশ্চিত সময় দাঁড়িয়ে অর্থনৈতিক সংকটে সারা বিশ্ব, বাদ যায়নি বাংলাদেশও। কিন্তু কি করে এ থেকে পরিত্রাণ পাওয়া যায় তার উত্তর খোঁজার চেষ্টা করব আজকের ফোর্থরাইট অনুষ্ঠানে। আপনাদের সঙ্গে আছি আমি সৈয়দ আশিক রহমান। আজ কথা বলবো করোনাকালে বাংলাদেশে বিদেশি বিনিয়োগ নিয়ে। আর এই বিষয়ে আলোচনার জন্য আজ আমাদের সঙ্গে যুক্ত আছেন মাননীয় প্রধানমন্ত্রীর বেসরকারি শিল্প ও বিনিয়োগ বিষয়ক উপদেষ্টা সালমান এফ রহমান এমপি, বাংলাদেশে জার্মানির রাষ্ট্রদূত হিজ এক্সিলেন্সি পিটার ফারেনহাউস এবং বাংলাদেশের নেদারল্যান্ডসের রাষ্ট্রদূত হিজ এক্সিলেন্সি হ্যারি ফারাইজ। Firstly, I would like to thank Honorable Advisor, Excellency Ambassador Mr. Peter and Harry Verwees for joining with us. Very good to see all of you, and it's an open platform, so any one of you can ask each other. Firstly, I would like to start with the German Ambassador, Mr. Peter. Excellency Peter, in 2018, Germany and Norway had a net FDI inflow of about 135 million USD in Bangladesh, which is much lower than that by leading investors. How does German government may increase the number during COVID and the post-COVID situation?
We see a great potential in the Bangladeshi market. Just up to the beginning of this year, as we all know, Bangladesh has crossed the threshold of middle income. The total size of the GDP was ranked number 37 globally, surpassing countries like Chile or Finland. Highest growth rate in Asia. We see a great potential here, theoretically. So German companies have been waking up to the potential of the Bangladeshi market, and they have been coming here. We had about, at a rate of about one German company per month that had set up a presence here in your country. As you remember, as the honorable advisor will remember, at the end of last year, we had a major business delegation here from the German Asia Pacific Business Association, which was quite successful. They returned to Germany with very good impressions. But your question is absolutely correct. Why is the FDI from Germany not larger than it is at the moment? And these are is a key question. Bangladesh needs much more FDI than it is receiving at the moment. The huge amounts of capital needed to push the country ahead into middle income and higher middle income level, the construction of the infrastructure sector, the establishment of a sustainable health sector. All of this will take great amounts of capital and expertise. Global capital looks at the conditions in each country, and they will go there where the conditions are very good. Corruption is a major problem for investors coming into this country. And you see, a German company can be held liable in a German court if they somehow come in touch with corruption. So I know your leadership understands all of these three issues, and they're working hard to resolve them. So I want to encourage them to do this. Thank you.
Excellency Ambassador Harry, Netherlands government shows their interest to assist to Bangladesh on Delta Plan. In your view, what are the potentialities and how may utilize it?
Let me first of all express my condolences because we've encountered so much sad news in the recent past here in Bangladesh, and I would like to acknowledge difficulties for the Bangladeshi government, and I would, let's say, applaud them with the measures they've taken. And I understand and recognize that they are between a rock and a hard place. The situation is very difficult, and I also feel with Bangladesh because at this until this moment and until COVID, it was very clear that Bangladesh was on such a very strong upward trend and such an upward curve for the economy. And I've always been so much impressed with the energy, with the young talent in this country and the entrepreneurship with so many that has pulled this country out of poverty in such a short period of time. And this should be applauded, and this should be, further worked upon. Let me just also say that the Netherlands has, of course, always been on the side of Bangladesh. We've always been with you, and this is not just me saying that, we can actually prove 50 years of partnership with Bangladesh. At this moment, we truly want to make this change, transition from, let's say, a development partner to being a trade partner. And as my valued German colleague has just said, there are a number of issues, and I subscribe to all the points he was making. But let me add a few issues that maybe are of more particular nature that need to be addressed, and they are of a more systematic nature. And this has to do with, fiscal policy, taxes, and infrastructure. But more in particular, and this is what I would like to emphasize, I'm really curious to learn also from the honorable advisor how he looks at this, is regard to economic diplomacy by Bangladesh. Because I think there's so much to do for Bangladesh, expand on on its brand, as it were, elsewhere in the world. And I feel that that needs improvement. Your specific question with regard to the Delta Plan, this is our anchor point with Bangladesh. This is our basis for our cooperation. And I would love to go into more detail with you. Leave it at this for the moment, but I'm very happy to expand on the point of Delta Plan. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Harry. We'll come back to you again. Honorable Advisor, Mr. Salman F. Rahman, MP. Since the COVID-19 pandemic is a crisis of a completely different magnitude and it requires a response of unprecedented scale, what are the initiatives have taken by our government to identify and prioritize sectors for foreign investment and prepare an action plan to mobilize activities?
I'd like to thank you first for inviting me to this program. I'll respond to both what His Excellency, the German and the Netherlands ambassador. For that, let me answer your question. You're absolutely right. What is happening now in the world is absolutely unprecedented. And this is a challenge which is not being faced only by Bangladesh. I think it's being faced by every single country of the world. The other thing which is happening is that it is a very dynamic, it is not something, you see, every day you wake up and you hear something new. So no government is actually really in a position to solve the problem because you don't really know what the problem is. Every day you are getting the problem is expanding. Like you see in the United States, I was seeing this morning that where the California had nearly gone back to normal, today they are saying that they are now again contemplating shutting down nearly 75% of the state. And so this has repercussions all over the world. You see, we heard in China that they have taken care of the problem. But then again, we heard that in Beijing, they had again instances of the coronavirus reoccurring. So this is something which is a dynamic problem, and for it, it's unprecedented. In Bangladesh, as you know, Honorable Prime Minister, we were very proactive. And what we did was that when we realized that this is going to be a serious problem, so I won't go into the details of all the stimulus programs and packages which were announced by the Honorable Prime Minister for the private sector and also for the people who would be affected, the people whose jobs were affected, whose livelihoods were affected. And the challenge which every government is facing, actually, more or less every single government is facing and is grappling with this, and nobody has a perfect solution as yet. In Bangladesh, what we have been doing, the first thing which we have done is that we wanted to make sure who were affected were helped. And that assistance and that help has been given, as you know, direct under the safety network program, transferring cash payments to people, the small SME businessmen, the small and medium enterprises, they have been given special stimulus packages. For the larger companies, they have been given, the central bank has taken some policies. So this is something which is ongoing and we continue to do. So at the same time, we have to increase our health infrastructure. We have already appointed 5,000 new doctors and nurses and technicians. And Honorable Prime Minister announced in Parliament the other day that we'll be appointing another 5,000. So that is happening. We are going into the district level. The hospitals are being strengthened. ICUs are being set up. So all of this is being done. Foreign investment and FDI. Yes, this is very, very important that we should be able to attract foreign investment, and we need to do. And I think points which have been raised by both the ambassadors are valid points. We have an issue of bureaucracy. We have an issue of and regulations which are now being liberalized. As you know, that this is to do also indirectly with ease of doing business index.
Mr. Peter and Mr. Harry, they both mentioned about the terms of investment here. If you explain.
Ease of doing business index, what we are working on. And actually, if the pandemic had not come along, then this year we were very hopeful that we would have had a big improvement in our ease of doing business index. That's to do with the rules and regulations and the bureaucracy which they were talking about. We are doing a lot of things is happening. And also the OSS, the one-stop service. As you know, recently the United Nations have given Bangladesh, our land records are now digitalized. And we got an award from the United Nations for that. So what is happening is that on the bureaucracy, which you mentioned, the first point, there's a lot of work being done. And that I think as soon as the things become normal, we are continuing with this work on the moment in this basis. I think in the next year, when the new index is announced, we will have made a lot of improvements there.
Well, Mr. Rahman, how does foreign investor can overcome this bureaucracy? Actually, everybody, even you also talking about it, but how overcome this bureaucracy?
I told you that. That is the ease of doing business index. That is where all the bureaucracy in the ease of doing business index of the World Bank, there are at least 14 different areas. There is the custom, there is the port, there is the income tax, there is the Bangladesh Bank. All are these areas which are being addressed under the BIDA, the Board of the Investment Development Authority. They have taken an initiative to improve this index. So we go to each of these areas which are the problem, and therefore solving those problems, and we are bringing it down. Just to give you one example, to form a company, it used to take 3 to 4 months if you wanted to incorporate a company. Today, you can go to the registrar of joint stock company, go online, and within 30 minutes, you can form a company in Bangladesh, online, from anywhere in the world. So this is something which is a big improvement to before what the situation was.
This is really appreciated.
Similarly, so a lot of other issues. Land records were a big problem. We have digitalized the land records. Now, one of the foreign investors, the big problem they used to face was when they went to buy land. If they wanted to purchase land, they used to have huge problems with the land records. Now that is fully digitalized. So when they purchase land, it will be easy. The other thing which we are doing, as you know, we have done this 100, Prime Minister has gone for doing 100 export zone authorities. Not export, the special economic zone authorities. Visa is doing. Now, in there you have a one-stop service. So we have the Bangabandhu Shilponagari in Maheshwari, which is in Mirasharoy, which is nearly 35,000 acres. And that is now also being, there you have a one-stop service. There you don't have a land problem, you don't have an infrastructure problem. In Matabari, we are building the deep sea port with Japanese assistance. When that happens, another problem with Bangladesh is a big problem of Bangladesh is the fact that we don't have a deep water port. So if once that is constructed, that will also help in the infrastructure. I wanted to basically address the issues which one was the bureaucracy that is being addressed. Other was corruption, which was mentioned by His Excellency, the German ambassador. Now here I would like to make point very, very clear. That as far as corruption is concerned, in Bangladesh, in the last 10 years, and in fact 11 years, while our Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's government has come to power, for sure, corruption at the highest levels has not taken place, which in the past governments did take place. And just like the German ambassador was very blunt, I will also be very blunt, and I will hope that he does not mind that, as you know, that in the previous government's time, there was a German company which was involved in corruption in the highest level of government of Bangladesh.
Okay, Excellency Peter, if you want to add.
The honorable advisor really pointed out, of course, I know so much progress has been made, and especially the honorable advisor is working tirelessly to improve the conditions for FDI. And this, of course, is a process. You cannot just do this overnight. It's a process. And of course, we see the progress being achieved. It's a work in progress. I would like to make one suggestion, one idea, if I may. You know, things are changing in Bangladesh. There's so much progress. We live here, we work here, we know this. But, you know, in many parts of the world, they are not really catching up on what's going on in this country. So I would propose that Bangladesh would have a more active outreach. You know, even we in Germany, we have teams traveling to other countries to attract FDI. I would suggest that Bangladesh sends out teams to visit all major business associations in Germany and other European countries, or even specific companies, governments, and to present the opportunities and the rules and regulations and frameworks and incentives for FDI in Bangladesh. As far as I remember, since I've been here almost 2 years, I have not seen such a delegation to Germany. You know, as I said, every country is competing for FDI. You need to make your case. You have to answer the question, why invest in Bangladesh? And this is why you have to go out and sell your country. And this is what I would suggest to do once the corona crisis is overcome, that the European Union is the largest, most reliable partner of Bangladesh. And surely you could raise a lot of interest for FDI in Bangladesh.
No, this is a very good suggestion you're saying, and I think this is what His Excellency the Netherlands ambassador also mentioned about economic diplomacy. I think we have to actually strengthen our economic diplomacy. But on this point, which I would like to mention that we have taken, and which has been very interesting, you see, we have found that a lot of the European Union major companies, German companies, Dutch companies, all of them are very active in India. They have come and they have got a very active presence. So last year, when Honorable Prime Minister had visited Delhi and I had the honor of accompanying her to Delhi, we had meetings with the Indian, the CII, the Confederation of Indian Industry. And at that point in time, we also met the foreign companies which are operating, which are already in Delhi. And our point was, and what we tried to protect to them, that if you have already come all the way to India, it's just one step more and you can come to Bangladesh. And what we wanted to, and we got a good response to that. And what I was trying to say is that, okay, you are manufacturing, setting up manufacturing plants in India for the Indian market, but the Indian market is a huge market. You can also then set up manufacturing plants in Bangladesh, could also be a supply source for your Indian plants. So, and that is, if we can merge with that. So actually what we are trying to do, and this is what I've been advocating, that we should target those companies which are already operating in India, because the fact that they have already come to India, then they know about the South Asian culture. And then, because, you're talking about bureaucracy, you're talking about corruption, the point is that India is not much better off than we are in all these issues. Their bureaucracy is as cumbersome as ours. So the fact that those companies are staying in India and being able to operate successfully there, those are the companies we want to really target. That's one. But what you suggested, you are absolutely right. We have to increase our economic diplomacy. We have to, after this crisis is over, we need to definitely go to take delegations and go. And it is, and I agree with you 100% that FDI is, every country is competing for FDI. And so we have to really go and project ourselves.
Ambassador Hari, we are sure that you have to say something on this topic, and we'll listen to it after a short break. দর্শক দেখছেন RTV নিয়মিত আলোচনা অনুষ্ঠান ফোর্থরাইট। এই পর্যায়ে নিচ্ছি বিরতি, ফিরছি অল্প সময়ের মধ্যে, আমাদের সাথেই থাকুন। দর্শক আবারও আমন্ত্রণ ফোর্থরাইট অনুষ্ঠানে। আজকে কথা বলছিলাম করোনাকালে বাংলাদেশে বিদেশি বিনিয়োগ নিয়ে। ওয়েলকাম এগেইন all of you at FORTHRIGHT. Mr. Harry, if you want to add some points and if you want to discuss about it.
Thank you very much. With pleasure. For attracting FDI, there's no magic bullet. Let's be honest. I mean, it's hard work, and you need to really be involved in all sectors of the economy. And in my work as the Dutch ambassador here to attract foreign investment to Bangladesh and to trade with Bangladesh, I actually developed a slogan, to be quite honest. Maybe that is also something of a brand and branding. It's expand, brand, and stand. That's been my line from the very outset. And expand means that should expand the economy and should expand on the opportunities and accommodation that you need to offer foreign companies here in Bangladesh. So you need to really work on ease of doing business, as the Honourable Advisor just mentioned. Of course, a lot of strides been made and a lot of progress has been made, but still there's a lot of improvement still to be made. Brand is, of course, as we just discussed. As I mentioned earlier, economic diplomacy. I'm really impressed with many of your ambassadors, including the ambassador of Bangladesh, the new ambassador of Bangladesh to the Netherlands, as well as the previous one, who've worked tirelessly to present Bangladesh to the Dutch private sector with quite some success. And I try to do the same. Not only do I try to brand the Netherlands in Bangladesh. Usually people know quite a bit about the Netherlands, so my work is not very difficult. But it's much more difficult to brand Bangladesh in the Netherlands and to ensure that the private sector in particular knows about the economic space. So that's branding. And if I may take it one notch further with regard to branding and economic diplomacy, I think it's also a communication issue. I think I've never understood why Bangladesh has not hired a number of the largest communication firms in the world and ensure that these companies help you brand the nation as we have branded our nation, as Germany has branded its nation, and as we as European Union continuously brand ourselves. It is necessary also for Bangladesh, and I can only urge you to continue on that line and on that track. And finally, if I may, expand, brand, and stand. And stand is to also stand for your principles and stand for your products and make sure that you produce of the highest quality, that you align with all the conditionalities that foreign markets dictate, and ensure that there will be no problems on that score. So from all of that perspective, I say the European Union is extremely open at this moment as you are progressing to the graduation, actually the dual graduation, that we can continue to give you preferential entry to the European market, but that needs, let's say, sophisticated diplomacy, a continuous attention to the conditionalities being said, and an adaptation of a certain set of legislation to make that work. We're on your side. We want to help you. We are continuously working on that plan. We see a lot of opportunities. I consider Bangladesh one of the Asian tigers, maybe the Asian tiger at this moment. And, let's make it work for both of us. And sure, that will make Bangladesh, and this will pull Bangladesh out of this crisis, as you all need to get out.
Thank you, Mr. Harry. Honorable Advisor, do you want to add something?
Actually, you are 100% right. And this is what we are doing. With BIDA, we are actually taking this initiative. We are talking to the World Bank and to IFC to see how we can appoint international people to help us brand Bangladesh, which I was saying earlier. The problem is that many times people come, and when we go abroad, when I give a presentation on Bangladesh, many of the companies to whom I have presented are very surprised. They said, nobody told us about all these things which you have been able to achieve. And so that is true. I think that is a weakness on our side, which we are not definitely wanting to do. But like you said, our foreign minister is now very, very, he's emphasizing on economic diplomacy. Honorable Prime Minister, whenever she goes abroad, she always meets our own ambassadors, and she is insisting and emphasizing that we should go on economic diplomacy. What you said is right. And I think things are going to happen. We are seeing a lot of interest. And of course, what you said with the European Union, I would like to again take this opportunity to thank the European Union, to thank Germany and the Netherlands for obviously our garment industry, for example. Our garment industry is successful. One of the key reasons for its success is the fact that we got preferential access to the European market. This is, is there. And so we want to work together with the European Union going forward. And after this pandemic is over, we hope to be, once we are back to the normal situation,
back to the normal situation. Yeah. Thank you. Ambassador Peter, experts are saying that there was a huge demand for investment, but the local banks and the stock markets could not manage to address such demand. What is your view on this issue? After observing Bangladesh market, do you think our government is trying to solve this gap?
Of course. The issues are well known, and there have been many ideas have been raised and developed to reform the financial sector. Of course, the corona crisis now happened, and many of these measures will have to be postponed as you need to mobilize emergency resources, which is completely understandable. But I think we all agree that a country developing like Bangladesh needs a strong and healthy financial sector, following clear and strict rules. Because where's all the capital supposed to come from? How is this capital supposed to be raised? And you need a good, healthy stock market. You need a strong, healthy banks. For the medium to long term, there is really no alternative. But if I may come back to what the Honorable Advisor said, India, German companies, India, Bangladesh. The German companies started coming into the Indian market in about 2003, 2004. At that time, I worked at our consulate in Mumbai. And we almost had one delegation per week of investors coming in. But Bangladesh was at that time kind of behind. But now Bangladesh has caught up with India. The GDP of capita of Bangladesh will surpass the GDP per capita of India probably next year. We will overtake India. And this, we come back to the perceptions abroad, which needs to be brought up to date. Another idea would be to establish a trade delegation to promote FDI to Bangladesh, but also to study the European market in Brussels or in Frankfurt or in Amsterdam or wherever, besides the embassy. I was very surprised to hear that the BGMEA has no office in Germany, even though we are the largest or second largest market for RMG products. And I found they somehow lack the full understanding of the German market. You need to understand your customer if you want to sell sustainably. And this is maybe something in the medium term to think about, to have the trade professionals, investment professionals somewhere in the European Union to do work both ways, promote Bangladeshi products into the EU and to attract foreign FDI from the EU into Bangladesh. You need true professionals for this, also to do lobby work with the European Union and with the national governments.
Well, Mr. Rahman, Honorable Advisor, would you like to add with Mr. Peter discussion?
Yes, what he said is I agree. I said that in beginning only, that we need to have more, take more actions for promoting Bangladesh. In fact, not only promoting Bangladesh, telling about Bangladesh to all these countries. And he is very right that you should not only depend on the embassies and on the government, and that the private sector should also come forward. And his suggestion about the BGMEA setting up some kind of a presence in the European market, I think it's a very good suggestion. And I think once the pandemic is over, what actually, I think what we should also try to, although we are now discussing this and we are being, I say it's a good thing that we are discussing this, that we are trying to be normal. But the fact is that at the time we are discussing this, things are not normal at all. We are going
exactly
through a serious situation. I think every country has many other priorities than what we are actually talking about. What we are talking about is very important, but there are much more important priorities at the moment. And I think what we are trying to do, at least Bangladesh, what I'm trying to do, coming back to the original issues which was raised by both the ambassadors, what we are trying to do is we are trying to get as much as possible under this very, very difficult and challenging situation. We are trying to get our infrastructure, major infrastructure works. You know that we had some very big infrastructure projects which were ongoing just when this pandemic struck us. We are now trying to see how quickly we can restart these projects, and some of them we have already restarted on a limited scale, so that at least we can finish the major infrastructure work even during this difficult time. That will help us for foreign investment, because infrastructure is very, very important. So the works which we have started, if we can finish those, that will help us to get the foreign investment. The other thing is the ease of doing this and the one-stop service work which we had started. If we can finish that also, then because today's discussion is on foreign investment, but at the same time you have to keep in mind that there are serious limitations under which we are having to work at the moment. Because as you know, every day also the COVID infections are increasing. Not only in Bangladesh, but all over the world it is happening. So that is something which we have to keep addressing at the same time. It's not something you can ignore and say that we are just looking at foreign investment. So the suggestions which have come are very good suggestions, but I think it will take some time for things to become normal before we can implement those.
Ambassador Hari, Bangladesh government is trying to avoid economic barriers, enhance transparency to foreign business, and improve ease to doing business situation to attain FDI inflow. How much optimistic you are, Mr. Hari?
If you're a diplomat, you're always optimistic. And so I'm very optimistic. And I'm very optimistic on Bangladesh, really. And I think, it is a very sophisticated entrepreneurial environment. And I'm sure that everyone and all these smart people involved will know how to deal with this and how to get itself out. Bangladesh is quintessential resilient. And of course, it prides itself for that always, and rightly so. So I'm sure it will get out of it. The point is that Bangladesh, of course, we always talk about the export sector, but the domestic market is much bigger than the export sector in Bangladesh. So not only will the RMG sector need to diversify its production capacities and its products, but also the economy at large. And now this, of course, has been discussed for a long, long time. It's nothing new. You're all used to these type of discussion in this country, but it has not yet come to a change yet. Whereas at the same time, there are many very young entrepreneurs and new companies coming up who are seeking their place in this market. And I can only hope and expect, actually, that the Bangladesh government will be able to accommodate those new creative industries, be it the ICT sector, be it pharmaceutical or others, the more established sectors as well.
Ambassador Peter, Germany is the largest importer of garments from Bangladesh. In your view, how we may diversify our market, which will create an opportunity to increase FDI?
Well, the consumer preferences change, the market conditions change. And, one basic principle of business is that you need to know your customer. In Germany, but also in Europe, we are now shifting to the attitude that consumers will want more sustainably produced products that are being produced under socially and ecologically sustainable conditions. So this is something that Bangladesh has been working on, and we have been assisting Bangladesh in this, the Bangladeshi RMG sector and this transformation. This could be an opportunity once these preferences of consumers in Europe change. the RMG sector could be in the forefront of supplying the products that are wanted in Europe. And if consumer preferences change, you could adapt to this faster than your competitors in Vietnam, for example, right? But then you need to know your customer. You need to be in the. You need to have your experts in the market to study how the market is changing, right? So I think this is something that is really very important. Corona crisis is that we will diversify the whole investment portfolio in Asia and not be so heavily engaged in China, but we need to diversify, looking at the locations of investment and as trading partners. And this is a great opportunity for Bangladesh.
Yes, Honorable Advisor, yeah.
I think that is the point raised by His Excellency, the German ambassador, is very, very vital. And I think Bangladesh is already seeing this. The two issues. One is that we have to diversify our products. The other is that as we see more and more, we are finding that from the European Union as well as from the inquiries are coming for sourcing products which they have been traditionally sourcing from China. So that is, I agree, is a big opportunity. And I think we in Bangladesh, our private sector is very, very, reacts very fast. And I think that is something which they are already looking at. There's a lot of people are looking at both in the garment sector as well as in the other areas.
Well, thank you. Ambassador Hai, the energy sector received the highest amount of gross FDI, and the amount is 1.27 billion USD. What is Netherlands' stance on this sector? Is there any specific agenda for Bangladesh from Dutch government?
I think the BGMEA and its president, Dr. Rubana Haq, have done a lot to present the industry, the Bangladeshi industry and the Bangladeshi textile industry to Europe by actually, actively promoting Bangladesh and by actively doing diplomacy in Brussels, Paris, and Strasbourg. So I would like to comment on that, and I think it would be very wise to continue on that score. So this is what I wanted to mention. Secondly, I think the marketplace is changing so fast. You have to adapt quickly, and I'm glad to hear the honorable advisor saying that Bangladesh is very fast in adapting to these changing marketplaces and to the demands of these markets. And I've seen that, and you can, and we will respond to this. So for me, in general terms, Bangladesh is a hidden gem, and I would just say, let's make it a brilliant, make it a blinking diamond, and make sure that it is the diamond in the crown of South Asia. And I think we're on our way to this. And I would like to say that we are your partners and take us with you and be transparent with us. So with regard to the energy sector, of course, it's a very interesting sector to invest in because it gives good returns and it brings in a lot of money at the same time. We have, to be quite honest, not as much involved in that as many others. We will continue to focus on water management and water infrastructure in this country and water safety. And I think this is where our expertise is. This is where you should tap into our energy and our expertise and make sure that you continue to work with us. So that this is our line. This is our way forward. This is how we will help to bring you in other foreign direct investment on this particular very important issue of water management in Bangladesh.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Well, we are almost end of this discussion. A single question to you all. Experts are says that it is not possible to act after this pandemic as if globalization has come to an end and that everyone has to close its doors amid rising protectionism. How does our global leaders should behave in these circumstances? Ambassador Harry.
Let me just say very quickly that the globalization has not come to an end. Certainly not. And certainly not for Bangladesh and certainly not for the European Union. So although protectionism and to protect your own markets is understandable, it is demonstrably a detrimental reflex and it should never be followed. International trade and investment are the quickest way back to recovery. Please understand this. And Bangladesh, I think, is completely on that track. We all, the Netherlands does, as does Bangladesh, depend on foreign markets. And I hope that the COVID-19 pandemic shows us how connected we are and how dependent we are on each other. So together, it's much easier to bounce back from this. So I would really urge global leaders to focus on cooperation and not isolation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peter. The same question to you.
My dear colleague Harry said, the Dutch ambassador, there's no alternative to globalization. Globalization, free trade, last 20 years, it took so many people out of poverty and increased prosperity all over the globe. If we close our borders, if we move backwards, this will not help us in any way. We need to continue globalization. We need to learn our lessons. We need maybe a better system of globalization. We need a better system of free trade. Especially, we must look at those large countries which have profited from the free trade system, their companies in a way which would not enable them, which would give them advantages. So we need to learn our lessons and improve on the system of globalization, free trade, and also diplomatically multilateralism. Multilateralism is the way forward. As the nations of this world, we need to work together to find solutions together. We are confronted now with the corona crisis, a global crisis of global scale. Is no one single nation can solve this. This is where we need to work together. I think this reinforces the need for and the understanding for all of us that we need to continue on this path.
Honorable Advisor, Mr. Rahman.
I would say I would go one step further, that in order to face the crisis which we will face after what has happened, we will need more cooperation between all the countries. And in fact, whatever the level of multilateralism, the level of international cooperation must be increased in order to solve the problem. Because in the past, it used to be a situation where it was the developed world helping the developing world. But now it is, all of us are in this together. Even the developed world are going to be facing a lot of problems. And there is going to be, once all of us work together, there will be areas where they will be helping us, but there will also be many areas where we will also be in a position to help them. So I think the more there is global cooperation, the more there is multilateralism, it is going to be better for all the countries.
Well, thank you very much, Honorable Advisor Mr. Rahman, Mr. Harry, Mr. Peter, for joining with us. Keep safe, be well, and hope for the best. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Stay healthy.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Safe and be well.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Thank
and
you.
take care. Goodbye.
দর্শক, করোনা ভাইরাসের প্রভাবে অনেক দেশ কারখানা স্থাপনের নতুন উৎসুক হচ্ছে। বিশেষজ্ঞরা বলছেন, যথাযথ পদক্ষেপ নিতে পারলে বাংলাদেশেও হতে পারে তাদের গন্তব্য। ইন্দোনেশিয়ায় $70 লাখ বিনিয়োগ করলে 5 বছরের জন্য 50% অবকাশ সুবিধা ঘোষণা করেছে। আর বিদেশি বিনিয়োগ বাড়াতে ভারতও নতুন শ্রম আইন করেছে। বাংলাদেশের বেসরকারি খাতের বিনিয়োগকে জোরদার এবং বিদেশি বিনিয়োগ আকৃষ্ট করতে বিনিয়োগ পরিবেশের উন্নতির পাশাপাশি বাণিজ্য নীতির সংস্কার গুরুত্বপূর্ণ বলে মনে করেন বিশেষজ্ঞরা। কোভিড-19 এমন একটি দীর্ঘমেয়াদী সংকটের ইঙ্গিত দিচ্ছে, যেখানে কোনো একক দেশের পক্ষে সামাল দেওয়া কঠিন। তবে পারস্পরিক এই নির্ভরশীলতার আদলে বিশ্বায়নের ইতিবাচক পরিবর্তন ঘটুক, সেই প্রত্যাশা শেষ করছে আজকের অনুষ্ঠান। এতক্ষণ সঙ্গে থাকার জন্য ধন্যবাদ সবাই।
For more updates, subscribe and press the bell icon on YouTube app and never miss another update.